The NFL draft is upon us, and the Chiefs are officially on the clock. And we are going to dive into all of the Chiefs draft predictions with the main guy in the Kansas City area, the king of mock drafts, Mr. Mock Draft himself, Jay Binkley of 610 Sports Radio in Kansas City, as well as host of the Character Concerns podcast. Get his take on all things NFL draft and Chiefs draft for the 2024 NFL draft.
Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the KC Sports Authority podcast, and we are pleased to be welcomed by the host of the Character Concerns podcast. You can also catch him on 610 Sports. There's nobody I personally trust more with draft analysis than Mr. Jay Binkley himself. Jay, or Bink, as most call you, welcome to the show. We appreciate you joining. How are you doing, brother?
Thanks, fellas. How you doing? One more day, and then we'll have some solutions to silly season.
Right, it's got to be like Christmas for you right now, like a kid on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I think so. I think this year's draft's gonna be a lot of fun. I think we're gonna see trade after trade after trade, and no one's gonna have their mock draft right. It's gonna be crazy. Nobody.
Well, and you are the king of mock drafts, at least out here. I know you guys just released the other day your latest and final mock draft on the Character Concerns podcast, which, of course, we'll talk a little bit about the picks you guys have there. But Chris and I both wanted to know, what is more entertaining for you? What day do you enjoy more, NFL draft day or watching a Super Bowl that the Chiefs are not participating in?
I like draft day better than a Super Bowl the Chiefs are not participating in. If they're participating, obviously that gets the nod. But like a couple of years ago, Rams-Bengals, yeah, I watched it, but I'd rather watch a nice Friday night of the draft than get the second and third round, to be honest with you. I like that better than first round.
What about in general? I know because you love the deep drafts going into some of these guys that fans have probably never heard of. What's more entertaining or more exciting for you? Is it day one or is it those day two, day three picks?
I think day two, and even for the Chiefs, especially day three as well. But I love Friday night. I love what you do in the second and third round. Last year, a little bit of excitement. It was the one day that the Chiefs went offense when they got Rashee Rice and Wanya Morris. The only day they got offense was that Friday night. But I enjoy the second and third round because Brett Veach seems to relish those rounds, and they do extremely well. So I think when the board resets kind of on Friday nights when I kind of like it the most.
Yeah, that's always the best night too.
Like, picking in the first round, you're essentially picking the second anyway.
Right, exactly. When you're picking as late as the Chiefs, they got their Jamal Charles on the second day. They got their Travis Kelce's on the second day. Justin Houston's, like, you can go back those second, third rounds.
Straight down for him.
Yeah, been huge going back. But as we get into this draft, before we get into the Chiefs and what you think the Chiefs may do, should do, whatnot, we wanted to ask a little bit about these quarterbacks in the first round because J.J. McCarthy, I think last I saw on FanDuel's is you can get the under at pick 4.5. Is he really going that high? Because I just haven't seen it.
I mean, the tea leaves say he's going 4, but that takes a trade with Arizona. Arizona says they're not even going to entertain a trade until they're on the clock, and I understand that to see what the price will be. I know the Vikings, they made that trade with Houston because they wanted that extra first-round pick to move down. I do believe J.J. McCarthy's their guy. Now, some have him lasting till 11 or the Vikings pick, so it didn't have him trading down. I think he gets traded. I liked watching J.J. play, but the bottom line is there's going to be bust. I mean, every year there's bust. I mean, you look at the year that Lamar Jackson was drafted. He was drafted 32nd. I thought that was a joke. He'd won the Heisman 2 years before that, but actually had a better year the year he didn't win the Heisman. And Josh Allen was in that draft, and that was the best. But there's just this. Look at Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. I mean, these guys were traded for absolutely nothing, and these were, high commodity first round picks. There's going to be some bust. There just is. Maybe Caleb Williams is the good quarterback out of this group, and Jaden Daniels, and maybe J.J. McCarthy's the bust, and maybe Michael Penix is the bust and gets injured again, and maybe Bo Nix, that now they're saying is Rich Gannon will be the bust. I mean, who knows? I do like J.J. McCarthy just as much as everybody else. I like Jaden Daniels a ton. Caleb Williams he could do anything with the football, but Jaden Daniels, man, that guy will cut your card out. I mean, I just like the way he plays, and I like the way that he takes over a game. But Jaden Daniels, I believe, is going to make it in this league. I can't guarantee everybody else. With J.J. McCarthy, kind of boom or bust. Obviously, he's a big game player, and obviously this year at Michigan, he was a great leader for that football team, and a big reason they won a national title. And I know his numbers kind of dipped there when Harbaugh got suspended towards the end of the year. But, he possesses the strong arm and does a lot of things. Kind of reminds me of Josh Allen a bit, that had a better 2 years before he entered the draft than the year he entered the draft. But you look at the intangibles and kind of what they do. And Josh Allen turned out to be a pretty special player. And, I do believe in JJ, but I think there's only going to be 2 home runs in the first round. And right now I'd say that's Caleb and Jaden.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Outside of those two, if you were one of these teams that's desperate for a quarterback, and there's clearly a lot of teams that are, who is that guy you feel the most confident picking as that third quarterback off the board?
Well, the third quarterback, Drake May, I mean, that's a crapshoot. I mean, these guys are crap. There's no guarantee. I mean, the quarterbacks all don't work. They just don't. I mean, look at a few years ago. Like Derek Carr in the second round was the best quarterback taken. Blake Bortles right there at the top, turned out to be crap. And so these guys not all going to work out. And we know that. Could we see 5 in the first round? The record's 6 in 1983, 3 times. We've had 5 quarterbacks selected, and we could very easily have 5 quarterbacks selected this week. I think Caleb Williams, obviously the surefire guy. As far as Drake May or J.J. McCarthy, I'd go J.J. McCarthy over Drake May. That's who I'd pick before, and I know a lot of people like Penix because of the accuracy. I'm a little bit concerned. I mean, I like Penix too, but I'm a little bit concerned that he's had 4 season-ending injuries, and I think that's got to be a concern. Listen, he can spin it, he can run, he can do a lot of different things. And at Washington, he remained relatively healthy with what he's doing. He was throwing the 3 first-round, quote, second-round wide receivers in McMillan, Polk, and Odunze. But, there's inevitably going to be bust in this quarterback class. It's just every year.
Yeah, I think Michael Penix is getting slept on just a little bit. I don't know if you guys saw Deion's tweet today or yesterday, whenever that came out now, about, hey, the guy had an excellent year and then he had 1 average game against the best defense. Don't overlook the talent there. So I've been high on him for a while, but I know there's a lot of injury concerns. I just don't feel like –
that's my only thing is
the injury stuff. And outside of those 2 guys at the top, it does feel like a crapshoot where we're either going to be sitting back here in a couple of years and it's going to be like the draft from a couple of years ago where everyone's moving on from their guys, or we have these teams that overreach for a quarterback because they were desperate. But speaking of,
might end up being the best one. I mean, he just might be. You never know. Or maybe Bo Nix surprises everybody at his age. But
that's the one I like, actually. I know he's a little bit older, but Bo Nix,
you know what? Being older, you get a ton of experience, and Penix got a lot of experience too because he spent 4 years in Indiana.
Yeah, fifth year on that contract doesn't mean as much when you're 45 coming into the league. So,
yeah.
But speaking of teams that are quarterback desperate, obviously we know there's 2 teams here, at least 2 teams here in the AFC West. There's ridiculous rumors out there that Harbaugh could do something stupid and try and get Herbert moved, which we're not even going to address that. But the Broncos,
contractually, that would be almost impossible to get away from. I don't think people are looking at the grand scheme of things and the guaranteed money when it comes to Justin Herbert. So that's kind of far-fetched. The real question will be if McCarthy goes early and they're sitting there staring at Marvin Harrison Jr. being an Ohio State guy, will Mr. Michigan draft the Ohio State guy?
It'd be silly.
That'd be a big mistake looking back at it, saying, "Oh, we could have drafted Marvin Harrison Jr." And I think certain, and the Cardinals should stay put where they're at and draft Marvin Harrison, because I have a feeling in 2 years when he's leading the NFL in receiving yards, they're going to go, "Could have had this guy. Could have had him right there." But no, he traded back for pick 23. Then ended up being, J.C. Latham, who's a right tackle that's bad at left tackle. So make the right decision.
Yeah, don't overthink it like these NFL franchises seem to do time and time again. But let's get into the Chiefs side of this, because the main expertise here is like, what at 32, the Chiefs can do literally anything. What if it was up to you, would you have the Chiefs do at 32?
I'd get a wide receiver, and I mean, the time is now. The draft is now. We've been saying it since September. The drop catches. I mean, they lost 3 games this year by not catching the damn ball. You know, 2 of them were Kadarius Toney when he basically handed the ball to Brian Branch and he gets a pick 6. Then he was lined up offsides, a wide receiver on the Kelsey play against Buffalo. To be honest with you guys, that could have cost them the Super Bowl, because had they won those 2 games, the AFC title game would have been the 7th straight year at Arrowhead Stadium. So, because they had a better AFC record than Baltimore. So that game would have been here and not in Baltimore. So it's tough. I mean, they led the NFL in drops. This is the deepest wide receiver draft class we've seen in a long time. If there was ever a year, and I know Rashee Rice, you know, with his legal issues poses an interesting thing. I thought it was wide receiver, you know, since September, long before Rashee Rice and in the car race and everything else that he had. But I mean, the bottom line is it's wide receiver to me, because I'm looking, okay, who are you going to pick at 32 that can make a difference for this team? They picked 7 out of 10 defensive players 2 years ago, 5 of 7 defensive players last year. They had 5 rookie defensive backs playing that Eagles game. They were 3rd in the NFL in rookie starts 2 years ago, meaning they're playing their rookies. Number 1 and number 2 picked number 1 and 2 in the draft order. The Chiefs were 3 and they won a Super Bowl. Big difference with those 61 starts by rookies. But who's going to be more valuable for this team? Marquise Hollywood-Brown has missed 8 games in the last 2 years. You know, Rashee Rice is going to face a suspension. Are you going to go, you know, you're going to go in the battle with Justin Watson and Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and think you got a chance against an NFL team, or maybe a Travis Kelsey that, you know, you put 19 games on his body every year, and what are you going to get? But if you draft a tackle, I keep hearing they're going to get a left tackle. Well, who are you going to get? Who are you going to get? Because some of the best tackles in this draft, like Amarius Mims, J.C. Latham, Talise Fuaga, those are right tackles. Those aren't left tackles. The Chiefs have a right tackle. They need a left tackle. So sitting at 32, maybe a Patrick Paul, because he's a true left tackle. Kingsley Sumatia, that a lot of people think the BYU connection, that is a pure left tackle. But are you going to trust somebody from Houston and BYU to guard the backside of Patrick Mahomes this year? Or is it essentially going to be a red shirt like you basically had Wanya Morris last year that started 4 games? But who is going to help you more? Would a receiver at 32 help this team more this year than drafting a lineman that may not be ready till next season to get the full effect? Who helps the Chiefs more this season when they're going for the 3-peat? I mean, they signed Chris Jones. They brought back Pennell. They brought back Noddy. They gave Drew Tranquill that 3-year deal. They didn't do this just for fun. They did this to be first-time 3-peat people in the NFL. So you're going to try to 3-peat with a right tackle from a BYU or Houston? You're going to move all of a sudden to the National Football League in the AFC West and put them at left tackle? So I keep hearing this left tackle. Well, if you're going to get a left tackle, you better trade down and get Joe Altaz. Like, you better go get, or for Shanu, you better go down and get a true left tackle and not settle for a Tyler Guyton that's a right tackle, a Jordan Morgan that's got 2-inch shorter arms than what Andy Reid requires. Andy Reid likes 34.25-inch arms. He's got 32 7/8. Already that's a big knock on Jordan Morgan. That's 2 inches shorter than what Andy Reid wants. Not only that, everybody's saying he's going to play guard. So I keep seeing these mocks. So you're going to draft a guard at number 32? Then I've seen Tyler Nubin, the safety. The hell would the Chiefs be drafting a safety at 32? No, I'm advocating they trade up to like 23, to be honest with you. But if for some reason they traded back, that's not the end of the world. As long as it's like 33 through 39. Panthers are picking 33 and 39. It's loaded with draft trade partners that I think would do business with the Chiefs, like Commanders and Packers and Patriots. Patriots have a long history dealing with the Chiefs. 37, the Chargers are not going to do business with the Kansas City Chiefs. We know that. But Brett Veach said they have 16 to 18 first-round grades. But he said that includes 4 to 5 quarterbacks. So if that's true, he essentially thinks there's 12 players that have first-round grades. So that essentially means when you get to pick 18, those are second-round picks beyond that. So does it really matter picking 32 or 38? Now, I hope Bo Nix or Michael Penix is still there, so a team may want to trade back into the first round to get number 32. Listen, I have no problem with getting a left tackle, but again, if that's where you're going to go, you better move up in the second round. Because if you don't, you're not picking a receiver till the dead last pick in the second round, which is basically saying we're good. We led the NFL in drops. We don't need to supply the best quarterback this franchise will ever see with the wide receiver, because picking the dead last pick in the second round is essentially picking a third rounder. So you have a Ferrari. Do you want to put gas in the Ferrari or not? Peyton Manning, I'm sure, is not complaining about Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. I doubt that'll be complained about at all.
So who's your go-to receiver? I mean, they say this receiver class is deep. You can get guys in the first, you can get guys in the second. But if we're still sitting there at 32 without a move being made, who's that receiver you feel the best case scenario could land with the Chiefs?
Well, I like A.D. Mitchell a lot, and I think it helps the Chiefs that all that stuff came out about the diabetes and all that, and how he's rude if he didn't take his medicine. See, it has nothing. I mean, seriously. And then the same scout says, well, it's great practice player as long as he takes his medicine. I mean, this dumb stuff, silly stuff, that's fine. If he slides the Chiefs, fine. Xavier Worthy might still be there too. I feel like Xavier Worthy is a lot like Hollywood Brown, even though you only have Hollywood Brown for about a season. A.D. Mitchell, I like Brian Thomas for that second tier. He's my favorite, but he's going to be long gone. I mean, you better trade up. You might have to go up to 17 with the Jaguars pick if you really wanted a Brian Thomas. But sitting where the Chiefs, Xavier Legette, I really like. A.D. Mitchell, I really like. I think these are kind of game changers with their speed. Xavier Legette, 220 pounds, runs a 4.39. The Chiefs do not have that skill set amongst their receivers, that big body guy that'll fight through a crowd, bring the football down. A.D. Mitchell runs a 4.34 at 6'2". Again, these are taller, more physical receivers with speed. Two things, having that speed is what the Chiefs 100% need, but the ability to be a taller receiver. I mean, MVS had the skill set. He was 6'4" and ran a 4.37 at the combine, but those guys really stick out to me. And I think one of them would be there. I think Xavier Legette could be there at 32, 100%. And A.D. Mitchell very well could because of what all came out about him.
But they're most likely being one of the guys that, as far as wide receivers go, they're 32. It may not even be worth entertaining this next question. But say for some reason they don't go wide receiver, they don't go left tackle. Is there even a third position they could entertain at 32? Or like, I mean, I don't have.
You sold me on a corner because he's fast and can return as well. I mean, but you've had a bunch of corners, and you know, in safeties and stuff like that. And you got Najee Johnson coming back at safety. He had a torn ACL last year, so you're getting him back. Hey, the Chiefs have been number 2 in the NFL in sacks the last 2 years, so we know they can put the pressure on the quarterback, make the corners better. Again, it's time to deal with this offense. They've neglected skill positions. They built up this defense. And again, got to ask yourself, okay, yeah, Mahomes has proven he can win Super Bowls without talent, but it got a little shaky there. It got a little shaky there without wide receivers when you get into like 2 years ago against the Bengals and everybody gets hurt. And all of a sudden how many times they rely on MVS in the postseason this year? They came up with these miraculous catches and they hadn't done it all year. So you live dangerously going that direction. But if you have the greatest quarterback that your franchise is ever going to see, give him some weapons, man. Give him some weapons. Enough of this Justin Watson, Sky Moore. Give this guy some thoroughbreds. Put some gas in that Ferrari, man. Let's get back to the Chiefs putting pressure on defenses. The defense is already there. Let's have this offense continue to put their foot down and get some playmakers in this offense. And, I think people are forgetting about Rashee Rice. They just automatically assume he's going to be playing every game. Well, it's going to happen here this year or next year. The NFL is going to step in. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. So, and then you're dealing with nobody getting injured. Then you're saying, well, no one's going to get, well, people get injured all the time. So what are you going to do? Have some depth at wide receiver. Because Hollywood Browns, you're looking at one more year. He's going to outprice himself this year. The Chiefs aren't going to pay that wide receiver tax going in the next year.
How many receivers do you think they actually draft in this draft? They got 7 picks. Probably not likely they use all those picks. But
no, I'd say I want 3 pass catchers, to be honest with you. I'd take like a Luke McCaffrey in the mid rounds, or the 7th round. You want to throw it dark because it's pick 221, so they're picking the very first of the 7th round above means. Somebody like that from Pittsburgh. But I like Ben Sinnott, the tight end out of a lot of people. Some people have him as their number 2 tight end. I agree with it because the RS score is ridiculous. I mean, he rated one of the better tight ends we've ever seen. Best in broad jump, best vertical. And he killed it at the combine, and it catches everything, can block, can play H-back, fullback, tight end, can do everything with the Kansas City Chiefs. I would want him to be with Andy Reid, but, a combination, or a Jaheim Bell in the later rounds or the mid rounds from Florida State, but a combination of 2 pass catching receivers and a tight end, or if you go 3 receivers, that's fine. But yeah, I'm sold on a Luke McCaffrey in like the 4th.
Nice. Yeah, that thing keeps popping up quite a bit.
Yeah. Are there any other positions you'd like to see them? Any names specifically? I know you've always got some late round names you're throwing out there.
Well, I was big on defensive line when it was Neil Farrell was the only guy under contract on the defensive line. But then all of a sudden, Noddy comes back and Pinnell comes back, Kirk Horton comes back. And, you get the number 2 defense, scoring defense in the NFL all coming back, which is huge. One guy I really like, his name is Quantez Stiggers, and he didn't play college football, and he played fan-controlled football league, right? He's a young guy. He's a big physical corner. He's 6'1". But last year he went to Canada and played in the CFL. He was the defensive rookie of the year. He was invited to play in the East-West Shrine game, and he's going to be he did not go to the combine, and he's going to be in the draft and mid-round pick. It's guys like that. It's guys like that light it up and prove that they can play that I really like. A Johnny Wilson, in the mid rounds, the 6'7" receiver out of Florida State. I like him a lot. I like Bub Means out of Pittsburgh that I mentioned, Jaheim Bell, Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State. I wouldn't be opposed at all to getting a tight end in this year's draft. Or, if Quantez is there at corner, I'd get him. But Ben Sennett's probably one of my favorite guys in this draft. Favorite guys from all the skill sets he can do.
So let's for a minute here, since you're talking about Senate, let's go to some of the local schools here, being KC area, K-State, KU, Missouri specifically. What can you tell us about the potential outcomes for some of these guys at K-State? Cooper Beebe's been all over a bunch of mock drafts early. KU's Austin Booker's been slowly sliding up as a pass rusher. What can you tell us about some of the guys out of KU, K-State, and then Mizzou?
Well, I like Austin Booker, Dominic Puny on that offensive line. I think he's good. As far as Missouri, Ennis Rakestraw, I think he's a fringe first-round pick. I like him to go to Baltimore this year with that physicality. Chris Abrams-Drain going to be drafted in the secondary out of Missouri. And Darius Robinson, what can you say about this guy and what he did at the Senior Bowl this past year? He's going to be a good pro, and I think can make himself get himself in the first round. Cooper Beebe is a guy that I really like, to be honest with you. He's a guy that plays all the time. He's more slotted with the arm length, to play guard in the National Football League, but a versatile player. I mean, this guy would be a guy Andy Reid would love, because if he can play on both sides of the offensive line, he always plays. Guy plays hurt or whatever, but I really, really, really like Cooper Beebe.
Love it. And I know you probably watched a lot of tape. Whose tape, like, regardless of position, regardless of where they have him going in the draft, has just really jumped out to you, like where you just see highlights, you're like, man, this guy's going to make it in the pros? I mean, I'm sure there's, we could go Caleb Williams and those names, but maybe a lesser known guy.
I think receiver-wise, one guy like Devontae Walker, the receiver from North Carolina, who was slotted to be a first-round pick, was at Kent State in the MAC, transferred to North Carolina, had to transfer. The NCAA held him out a couple of games, but he's got unbelievable speed. He's a down-the-field long strider. He dropped the ball at the Senior Bowl. He had like 9 drops at the Senior Bowl. That's not who he is, I don't feel. And I think that he's going to make a team pretty happy they went out and drafted Devontae Walker, because he is a down-the-field threat, and he can be a guy. Malachi Corley, a wide receiver. I think he's going to be a stud. Kamani Vidal, the running back that led the nation in rushing. Cody Schrader did yards per game. He didn't. Keon Coleman, I think, is going to surprise some people. The wide receiver from Florida State, who was easily a first-round pick until he runs a 4.61 at the combine. But I think people are sleeping on him. The NFL now.
If he falls to us in the second round and we have a chance to get him, I'd be all for that.
I mean, there's a possibility he's there at 32. Well, the NFL, you wear these GPS trackers now on your shoulder and stuff, the combine, and some are saying they're more important, than the 40. Last year Puka runs a 4.57. But Puka was the fastest in the gauntlet. The gauntlet's that drill where they run straight down the line and they turn to the right and the left and they catch the football, right? Puka was the fastest. So even though Puka's 40 time wasn't that great, he was a football player, and he turns out to set the record in catches and yards. The Rams didn't pick him till the third pick. They had 3 picks in the 5th round. Puka went their 3rd pick in the 5th round. So I know they're getting credit for drafting him, but you picked him with a 3rd pick in the 5th round, so let's not get crazy. Now, this year, Keon Coleman had the fastest gauntlet. Not only that, but Keon Coleman's gauntlet was faster than Puka the year before. And Keon Coleman was only one of 2 wide receivers that hit over 20 miles an hour in vertical routes. So what Keon Coleman says is, okay, this guy's a football player.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's got football speed, and you kind of neglect the 40. Maybe he had a bad 40. You know, maybe one year day and you go out and have a bad 40. Well, Puka proved this stuff wrong because it was like 4/10 off what Keon Coleman ran in the 40, but he proved that he's a good football player, and the gauntlet's a good direction, a good directive of how good you are. But I think people could be sleeping on him too.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned it on the radio the other day too. Just at some point, talent is great, but at some point, how does that talent actually translate on the field into a good quality football player like you're talking about there? And I think draft, there's obviously plenty of guys out there that are getting paid way more than us to dive into tape and make predictions. But sometimes, even though they jump off the charts at you with the way they test, they get into the football field, they put those pads on, it just doesn't quite translate. That's why, again, Keon Coleman, I think when you put the pads on him, I'm not too worried about what he tests. I know there's plenty of other guys like him too.
Yeah, he's a returner as well. But I know people are worried about Xavier Worthy. Like, don't be enamored by his 4.21 40. Well, we knew he's going to be fast. You knew he was going to be fast. He had 27 touchdowns the last 3 years. And his freshman year, he had like 980 yards, almost 1,000. He had 1,000 last year. I mean, dude can play football. Yeah, he's a little bit undersized. He's got a little Deshaun Jackson name with the size. But he can play football, and he runs a 4.21. And he's a returner and had a return touchdown. But 27 touchdowns the last 3 years, nothing to sleep on. And so, no, I'm not enamored by the fact he ran a 4.21. He's a better football player than what that 40 time is.
That's what matters most. I think Keegan's got one more question for you, and then we'll get you out of here. Again, thank you so much for your time, Bink.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, I guess where do we want to go with this? As you're looking at the end of the rounds here, or as you basically recap next week, we look back at what the Chiefs did. Is there anything you think that would surprise you in a direction they go or choose not to go in the draft with what they have left to pick from?
I guess the lack of pass catchers would really surprise me, because then I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? what are you going to do? You're going to put that much pressure on Hollywood Brown? You're going to hope or she rise? If they don't get pass catchers, I'd be concerned. Last year, they were going to stick with Kelsey, and he did lead the NFL in yards per game from the tight end, but that was a nice tight end draft last year. It was really nice. So I guess I'd be really surprised if they did not go pass catchers. I'd be ultimately surprised if they went quarterback in this draft as well, because I don't think there's a reason to with Carson Wentz and Patrick Mahomes. But, they could get away with a lot of things. I understand Steve Spagnuolo and what he does with corners. Love it. Mid-round, you can get it like a Kamal Haddon. I love this guy in the 4th or 5th round out of Tennessee. You can get a surprise guy that I think can be like a L'Jarius Sneed type player that they can find, because they have a knack of finding the right fit in the right guys. But I would be surprised if they didn't have multiple pass catchers out of this draft.
Yeah. Well, again, really appreciate you joining us for some Chiefs draft talk. I know you guys got a lot planned yourself the next couple of days. What's happening tomorrow night during the draft for you?
Well, we'll be at the Landing in Liberty, and we'll have a mock draft contest for people that want to put their skills to the test. We'll bring that, and hopefully there'll be trade downs and whatever, and people will be going nuts. I can't imagine what it had been like in 2017 when they traded down to get a Mahomes, because we knew they were getting quarterback when they traded down to 10. What could happen? And then Friday night will be 6 to 11, because the Royals play in the afternoon, which is great for us because it gives us opportunity to, as long as there's no damn weather delay. So, but then, because like at Baltimore, we had a draft special a couple weeks ago, and they had that 5-hour delay in Baltimore, so we weren't on. Saturday, we're on 10 to 2 because of the Royals game, and then Sunday, 9 to 11:30. So a lot of draft coming up, a lot of draft. Love it.
We can't wait to hear all of it, and I think I'm just excited to see what the Chiefs finally do and what all the other teams do, and as I'm sure you all are. But again, thank you so much for joining us. Keegan, I think you've got some shout-outs here before we get out of here.
Yeah. Quick shout out, Juan. Again, thanks, Bink, for joining
Hey,
us.
guys.
Appreciate
Thanks
having
a
you
lot.
on.
Love coming on again or after the draft to talk about the picks, whatever you have.
Absolutely.
So
We'll have to dive
thanks a
into
million,
this.
fellas.
Plenty
No
to
problem.
get into.
Appreciate you.
All right. Again, shout out to Jay Binkley of 610 Sports Radio, as well as the co-host of the Character Concerns podcast with Chris Unocero over there at 610. A lot of great content. He's got like 400 mock drafts you can go listen to and watch. Ultimately, all that's going to get tossed out the window here in like 12 hours when the Chiefs finally get on the clock, whether that's at pick 32 earlier or later. We'll have all that. But shout out to you guys, the listeners. We just surpassed a major milestone. 500 plus subscribers here on YouTube. We are so grateful for the support you guys have given us. So thank you. Shout out to all of you that have subscribed so far. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button below right now here on YouTube. You can also check out the podcast over on Spotify. Listen on the go there. And of course, you can hit us up on all of our social medias at KCSA Pod, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I guess TikTok for now. We'll see how that goes later with this news today. But yeah, plenty of stuff to check out. We got KU basketball, KU football stuff coming up. Big time football guests coming on here soon that you'll get some great content on. And then, of course, you'll see Chris and I do a lot of Royal stuff. So again, thank you guys so much for subscribing. Hit us up over the next 24 hours with any of your Chiefs takes, guys you were looking forward to get in the draft. Hopefully you have a chance to dive into this episode ahead of time. But that'll wrap it up tonight here. Again, appreciate you guys joining us, and we look forward to catching you guys in the next episode.